So the readings today speak about thinking like God does, not as human beings. That's what Jesus says to Peter, right? Peter, get behind me, Satan. You're thinking not as God does, but as human beings do, right? So we want to know, what does thinking like God mean? How does God think? Well, Saint Paul tells us in the second reading how God thinks. He tells us three things. The first thing is to offer our life as a living sacrifice to God. Offer our life as a living sacrifice to God, holy and pleasing to God. Offering our life completely to God. As human beings, we want to live for ourselves. But as God, we have to live for God. What about Jesus? Did he live for himself or did he live for God the Father? He lived for God the Father. What about Jeremiah? Did he live for himself or did he live for God? He lived for God. Mother Teresa said, our life is very short. It's just a small opportunity for us to offer something beautiful to God. So her life is something that's beautiful that she offered to God. She is holy, she is kind, she is selfless, and she is charitable, right? So what she offered to God was beautiful. So we have to think that way. We don't live for ourselves, our interests, our agenda, our plans. No, we want to live in a way that's pleasing to God. Whatever we do, it's an offering to God. And we don't want to offer anything evil. We don't want to disappoint him. We don't want to hurt him. We don't want to offend him. We want to offer him something always that is pleasing. And the second thing St. Paul says is, don't conform to the world. Do not conform to the world. He warned us. Did Jesus conform to the world? No. That's why they killed him. Did Jeremiah conform to the world? No. That's why they hated him. And how many of you watched the Republican National Convention? There was a sister there, right? She spoke boldly about the right to life, how precious a baby is. And she spoke about Jesus, and she spoke about the rosary. These are the things that the world doesn't want to hear, but she spoke about it anyway. She doesn't conform to the world. She spoke the truth. So no one wants to be different. No one wants to be hated. No one wants to be made fun of. But we can't conform to the world. We either have to pick Jesus or we pick the world. We can't have both. If we are faithful to Jesus, the world will hate us. Jesus already warned us. But then he also tells us we will be rewarded, we will be paid according to our actions, our life, our choices. And then the last thing that St. Paul tells us is to transform our mind and to discern God's will in everything. To discern God's will in everything. We usually follow our own will, but we should start following God's will. Jesus did the will of the Father. He didn't do his own will. He said this in the Garden of Gethsemane. If it's possible, take this cup from me, but not as I will, but as you will. And then the same thing with Jeremiah. He didn't want to be God's prophet, but in the end, he said he cannot help it. He has to speak the word of God. And so we too should seek God's will in all that we do. Ask if it's pleasing to God. Ask God in prayer what he wants for us, especially for big decisions. People come to me all the time asking for my opinion, how they should do certain things with their family, their work, and so on. And I help them discern God's will for them. So that's what we should always do. Live for the Lord. So we give thanks to God for reminding us and not to think as human beings, but to start thinking like God. And that is to offer our life for the Lord, not to conform to this world, and to always seek his will in all things. Then we will be rewarded for our choices.